One thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's really not that
There's
bad.
more.
There's more to assemble.
More complicated assembling Christmases to come.
Yes, there are. Which that'll be fun.
You'll
Looking
be
forward
fine.
to that. Nick Keiser, how was your Christmas?
It was great. Can't complain. I got a unique wallet.
Really?
I got tons of clothing.
Me too.
And let's see, lots of candy. So that's fun. So
That is good.
Just
That
a couple.
sounds pretty good.
Just a few things.
That's good.
Did you give anything good?
I did. You know what? I have not been able to do this in my lifetime just yet, but I decided because my brothers are old enough to appreciate it and they go to games themselves as fans, I got them their own Preds jerseys because they don't have them in their proper size anymore.
Way to
go. They've not had any for a long time, so I said, hey, here you
Look
go.
at you.
Cole Smith?
No names.
Okay.
Oh.
No names. They could do that themselves if they
put
want
Keiser
to.
on the back if they want.
They could if they want to. We
Nice.
used to be season
Liam Foodie?
ticket holder. No.
Okay.
No.
Just checking. We got a lot
Good
to get
stuff.
to on the program today. Hope everybody had a very Merry Christmas. We'll take your thoughts all show long. Joe Rexrode will be monitoring the text line today because my computer's down and my charger's apparently broken. So see if we can get that fixed.
Yeah, that
at some point.
stinks. Sorry about that. It's usually me that has issues like this.
It's the Rexrode text line today.
Yeah, it's a lot of
615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com will join us in the 8 o'clock hour. We'll get into all things Tennessee Titans with him. Joe, speaking of that, this is the first time that we've been back on air since the Titans lost to the Seahawks on Sunday, 20-17. Quarterback under duress again for the entire game, and it was fitting that he got sacked twice on the final drive there for the Titans to basically end the game there. But overall, what did you make of the 20-17 thriller between the Seahawks and the Titans on Sunday at Nissan Stadium?
Seems so long ago now.
It does.
You know, I've almost forgotten everything that happened. Yeah, well, look, at this point, the Titans fan who is like, hey, good fight. They're not quitting. They're still playing hard. They're doing their best. Also, look at that draft positioning. I get it. At this point, I get it. And I did, to the first point there, as I was coming in, first I'll give you a little, this could be rant-worthy, but as I was driving into the game Sunday, I had, I'm sure you've had this, a lot of people out there can relate to this, you get like the beeping and like there's a tire that's low and it's like way lower than the other three.
Oh, yeah.
It's like burp, 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 and it's like, so it was like 27 and all the others are 35. I'm like, oh my God, I have a freaking flat tire on the way to the Titans. So I immediately get off the road and so I have to like switch cars with Katie and I have to have her come and meet me and all this stuff. And AAA, we have AAA, and the tire, I'm looking at the tire, I'm like, it looks okay. Yeah, like the sensor's messed up. You ever
It happens.
I've never had this before. So anyway, I got there super late, but I will tell you what, this was the game for that to happen.
Yeah, it was.
Because normally if you get there around an hour before, you are screwed. Smooth sailing all the way in. But it was a pretty good crowd, and it was a team that, to get to my point, I was listening on the way in to Jared, D. Mace, Chris Sanders, and Jared kind of forecasting the complete, meltdown. And what does that say about Vrabel? Because
Right.
Of course, a lot of discourse about Vrabel. I would say that, they played hard. They continue to play hard. Guys that I still don't know their names very well continue to play hard on this defense. But yeah, I mean, and Tannehill had some good moments. They had a little throwback action going on with Tannehill and Derrick Henry. And then really, I mean, I do think a couple of those sacks, although it's always on the offensive line around here, a couple of those sacks, like Tannehill's got to just
Throw the ball.
get the ball out, right? So in the end, a disappointment. But they're right there. They're right in. They're right in range. That top 5 pick, everybody.
They are, according to Tankathon.com, currently the holders of the 7th overall pick in the NFL draft. They are 5-10, right there with the Chargers and the Giants as well. So the Commanders and the Patriots. Patriots on a heater lately. They've won like 2 of their last 3. So they're at 4-11 right now.
Belichick is just sticking it to Robert
Sticking
Kraft.
it right in there. Keep hanging around.
Going to get the best football of the year out of these guys right now.
There he is. So Titans right there in range for a top 5 pick, as you said. On Sunday, Tannehill 18 of 26, 152 yards. So my called shot of him throwing for less than 150 yards, close. 152.
Yeah.
It's close. Derrick Henry with a nice touchdown pass on Sunday. So continuing to elevate the passer rating stats in his inevitable, Hall of Fame case one day.
He had a heck of a day running the
He
ball,
did.
too.
19 carries, 88 yards, 4.6 a carry. Had a touchdown on the ground as well. It was a good day for Derrick Henry. That was the shining positive for the Titans offense on Sunday. That's about it.
Yeah. And
Chig played well.
Chig,
6 catches, 63 yards.
Yeah, Chig played well. He has had a nice late season surge. I think it's fair to say that now. I mean, I think Tyjae Spears looked good when he got the ball.
Yeah.
So there were some positives from that offensive line again in that aspect of the game, but just tough to get it downfield much. And Traylon Burks, it looked a few times like maybe okay, this could be one of those kind of growth days for him, but just in the end, not a lot.
Not a lot. 2 catches for 25 yards for Burks. I mean, even Hopkins, 2 catches for 20 yards for him. So Burks and Hopkins, not a whole lot going on out there in the passing game. Like I said, Tannehill got sacked, 6 times, got hit 8 times in the game, so just more of the same from the quarterback. I do agree with you, especially on that last drive, it felt like he was holding on to the ball a little bit too long, and maybe that's just unfair from our perspective. I'd love to see, the actual time he held on to the ball, but it's like, hey, man, you got to know that line in front of you. Get rid of the ball. Get it out very quickly.
Yeah, he's waiting for something to develop, and that's what we've talked about too, is at times – guys have to get open quick, or you got to have a quick outlet. But yeah, you just I think we've all been conditioned watching this team to have a very fast clock. When a quarterback drops back to pass, and it just a couple of those. It's like there's just you're toast if you don't just throw it away if you have to.
Yeah, exactly. And they're mounting that last drive. And they're getting close, kind of, to field goal range where you can give it a shot. And then the last play, you catch the ball, you don't get out of bounds, you're knocked out of bounds, and that's all she wrote at that point.
That it's amazing how, and this is far from, it happens all the time, how strict they are now.
They really
on the out of bounds thing. If there's any forward progress that is halted before a guy goes out of bounds, now they're rolling that clock. And it used to be if you end up out of bounds, they'll stop the clock. But that is not that
you used
anymore.
to get a pinky out of bounds,
right,
and they would stop the clock.
But now it's you better it's like the old complete the process of catching a football is now complete the process of going out of bounds. You have to go over there and get both feet on the ground and wave to your mom, and then you're out of bounds.
What'd you think of the defense? They gave up 20 points. Geno Smith, 25 and 36. 227 yards, couple of touchdowns. They held Kenneth Walker, 16 carries, 54 yards for him as a team, 20 carries, 58 yards for the Seahawks, 2.9 a carry on the ground. It just kind of felt like as the game went on, Geno was back there looking around. He's like, where's Trey Avery?
Yes.
Where's Trey Avery? And that's what they did. And ended up being a pretty good strategy.
Yeah, Trey Avery gave up huge numbers, and that doesn't count the at least one big PI that he had.
Yep.
So, look, you got to be okay with giving up 20 points to that team. Like you said, Kenneth Walker's a really good back. They held him down. They only got 273 yards, 4.6 a play. That's a good defensive game. But that team it's a really interesting team because I think Lockett, Metcalf, and now Smith and Jigba as the third guy. How many better trios are there in the NFL?
Not many.
It's right there with what the Bengals have to me. And then again, I think Walker's really good. So it's gosh, in some ways that team could be really intriguing. Geno but they're not great at quarterback. They're good at quarterback. But if you're the Titans again with some of these guys out there that they were rolling in the secondary and everywhere at every level of the defense, that's a pretty good performance.
We're off and running today on Robby and Rexrode. We'll take your thoughts on the Titans. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We've got the choice is yours coming up at 6:30. Paul Kuharsky from PaulKuharsky.com will join us today on the program in the 8 o'clock hour to discuss all things Tennessee Titans with him as well. So looking forward to all that. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Wednesday morning. Almost said Monday. It's not Monday. Tune in later this morning at 8:45 for your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click and win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Pick to Click brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold. Taking your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. It was interesting. I was interested to get your perspective on the crowd. I was just watching it on TV, and it felt like it was decent for a game on Christmas weekend with a team that's been eliminated for the playoffs. So
it was still, but it was still probably the lightest crowd in a long time there.
Yeah.
But, it was probably a little better than I thought. And I will say, it was more Seahawks fandom than I mean, you just don't think about
big Seahawks contingent around here.
Yeah, like they're coming here for. I mean, it's not like you're like obviously a lot of these football weekends here are travel weekends for opposing fan bases, and they make a weekend out of it in Nashville. I mean, people in Seattle weren't doing that in big numbers for Christmas weekend, right?
I don't think so.
But I guess that just shows you that there are people from all over the place who live here now.
There are.
So
no question about it.
A lot of that Seahawks green in the crowd.
It was an interesting weekend in the NFL. I mean, the thing that, like, if I'm a Titans fan, especially a Titans fan that had hopes heading into this year that maybe this could be like one last run, I think we're starting to discover like this division's not very good. I mean, Jacksonville is 8-7, and Trevor Lawrence is sustaining like a new injury every week. So they're 8-7. They've lost 4 in a row now. Indy's 8-7. Houston's 8-7. We'll see if they get Stroud back for this week with the Titans.
They all stunk this week.
They all stunk.
It was a disastrous AFC South.
It was. Like, they were all terrible this week. So, I mean, if you'd have told me before the season, hey, last 2 weeks of the year, Jacksonville's 8-7. Like, Titans got a chance, man. And they're by far the worst team, 5-10, and totally out of it. But, like, as the year has gone on, we're starting to discover, like, it's not a great division. Like, I mean, there was a time where Jacksonville was 8-3 and Houston was the hottest team in the league, and C.J. Stroud was getting MVP talk, and now everything's got to – and, I know Stroud's been hurt, and everything started to come back down to earth last few weeks in the AFC South.
Well, and now you look at – it's not good. And, of course, you look at, that Saints game and those picks.
Yep.
And, those 2 Colts games and how those went down. And, the Ravens game was right there for you. The Steelers game was right there for you. The Texans game here, this last game, I mean, now granted, they also did win a ridiculous game at Miami. You got to remember the close wins too, right? I mean, it ended up being close against the Falcons. It was a very close game against the Chargers. So you it's not like you lost all the close games you could have lost, but if you just change a couple of those results, then the Titans are absolutely just change a couple. They're a game back from winning the division.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you want to look at that? I mean, I look at it like still, this is a bad roster. This is a team that's going to pick in the top 7 or 8 anyway, and there's a lot of fixing to do. But if you want to look at it in the context of this division, they're not far.
Oh, Arthur Smith picks up a big win, 29-10 against Indianapolis. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not he keeps his job. That'll be I think was it Jeff Schultz that came out with a piece of him like walking in the parking lot
Schultz
with Arthur Blank. Arthur, let's have a chat.
He stalked him absolutely, and Arthur Blank's answers were very much the answer of a man who is conflicted. I mean, I believe it. I believe he's conflicted on what to do. I mean, it's like if Arthur somehow, like if the Saints can beat the Bucs this week, then the Falcons have a chance to win the division still.
Yeah.
And if you do that, I don't see how you.
I don't know how you fire him then.
But either way, I'd keep winning, Art.
It was an interesting weekend in the NFL. So the Bills have climbed back into this thing. They win 24-22 against the Chargers, and they're now the 6th seed. Joe Flacco and the Browns continue to play really well. Like, Flacco's come in there, and quite frankly, Flacco has given them better quarterback play than Deshaun Watson did for the most part this year, which is wild to think about. And they're sitting there with 10 wins. I mean, you look around the rest of the AFC right now, and the Steelers, they got a big win against Cincinnati over the weekend where George Pickens went absolutely nuts. So it's an interesting stretch. I think I saw a stat yesterday. We're heading into the last 2 weeks of the season. 24 teams of the 32 are still mathematically alive for a playoff spot, which is exactly what the NFL wants heading into the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it reaches all the way down to Denver and the Raiders at 11-12 in the AFC. And the NFC reaches all the way down to, I mean, the Bears are technically alive, but it does legitimately reach 11 teams, to the Saints. And the Bears would probably be the one team that's mathematically alive, but, they're not going to get in. But, yeah, you've got that, and you've got – it's the wild swings week to week. You mentioned the Steelers. I mean, a week ago it's like everybody's – all they're talking about is Pickens and how he's a locker room cancer and he didn't block for Jalen Warren, and his answer was like, well, I didn't want to get hurt, basically. Blocking for – and then the next week it's like, oh, my God, this guy could be incredible.
Unstoppable. yeah.
So it's – just take out the 7 and 8s. 8 and 7, you got the Colts, who are the 7 seed, Texans, Steelers, Bengals in order, 7 through 10.
Yeah.
That's wild. And the Bills, that's just better for us, I think, as football fans, that the Bills are kind of solidifying. They should be. They're one of the – I think they could make a run. I do. I think they could make a run in January if they get the right draw.
Well, I think –
maybe that draw is a 3-6 start with Chiefs, Bills, and Kansas City. Woo. Watch out, Chiefs.
I think Baltimore solidified themselves as the best team in football over the weekend. Brock Purdy threw an interception every time he dropped back to pass, it felt like, on Monday night. And they pretty much punked the 49ers at home. They're 12-3. Miami gets to 11-4. Kansas City loses again. They're at 9-6, losing to the Raiders. And you watch them play, like their offense is not good.
No.
And it's got Mahomes and Kelsey. That's basically it. Their offense is bad.
Yeah, Kelsey's banged up.
Yep.
And, this is last year they won it all. And it was like, doesn't matter who you give Pat Mahomes. Well, this next offseason, they're going to learn from their mistakes. If they went and got DeAndre Hopkins, I think they'd be right there to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But they didn't. And I agree. The Ravens are the best team. They are just really, really good. And by the way, I was talking about Lamar Jackson for MVP before this game. Now whole world is on it.
You were?
The whole world's on it. The whole world hates Brock Purdy again. And Brock Purdy's good. He had a bad night. A couple of those were tipped. He had a bad night. He's good. He's not the freaking MVP. He wasn't before this game.
Speaking of that side of things, San Francisco, Philadelphia, and your beloved Detroit Lions, all at 11-4, and the Lions have wrapped up the NFC North for the first time in maybe my lifetime. I'm trying to remember the last time they won it.
They won it in 93, so you were
I was 1 year old.
Yeah, you were pooping yourself last time they won it. So, yeah, congrats. Congrats to the Detroit Lions. Hey, good for them. We had family in from Chicago, but they're all rabid Lions fans.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody's very excited. It's cool for Detroit. And look, I will say, I still think it's San Francisco and everybody else, but I watched the Cowboys lose at the Dolphins. And the Dolphins, by the way, they got a nice answer. I think the Dolphins and Tua answered some things this week. They're good.
Is he better than Sam Darnold?
A good team. Is Tua better than Sam Darnold?
Some people are wondering.
I don't know. That's a great question. I still think it's Niners and everybody else, but the Eagles are vulnerable. And the Lions have an offense that's good enough to make a run. I still don't trust their D at all. I still think it's going to end up being the Niners, but it is interesting in the NFC. You got a 3-way tie at 11-4. Now the Lions are at the Cowboys this week, so I still think it's probably going to be the Niners, but it could be interesting if it goes through Detroit. That will be a tough place.
Well, the Niners have the mighty Washington Commanders on the road coming up this weekend, and then the Rams at home to close things out. The Rams playing good football. I need the Niners win that game. It'd be great.
That's right. Because so basically we're talking elimination game Packers-Vikings, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. Like you can't lose that game.
No. Like they need to win. So that's Sunday Night Football, by the way. Be good. It's some meaningful games coming up on the schedule.
And that's not flexed. Like that was
that was predetermined.
Okay, good for them. How about that? Ken and Waverly, how about them Lions? There you go.
How about them? They're very excited.
Ken's been giving me crap all year.
I saw the radio call on TikTok of whoever the Lions radio person is.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
They're very excited.
I haven't seen that. I'll have to check that out.
I'll find it. I'll send it to you. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, it's time for The Choice is Yours here on Robby and Rexrode. As always, we encourage your participation on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
We all have choices to make. like right now. It's The Choice is Yours, built by Jarrett Companies. You have a choice, so when you have a need for site and utility work, fire protection, concrete, and asphalt services, the choice is simple. It's Jarrett Companies. For more, visit JarrettCompaniesInc.com. The choice is yours, now on Robby and Rexrode.
It is time for The Choice is Yours on Robby and Rexrode, presented by Jarrett Companies, above and beyond industry standards, the only company your company needs for site work, fire protection, paving, and concrete needs. If you need an estimate, call 615-515-1270 or visit JarrettCompaniesInc.com. That's JARRETT CompaniesInc.com. Joe Rexrode is in the questions chair today. Joseph, the floor is yours.
Sports or non-sports?
Let's go non-sports.
Okay. What would be the worst day of a year to have a birthday? Look at Keezer. Like, what is happening right now?
Both of you are approaching that day.
We are.
This is a toss-up between a couple, but I'll go Christmas Day. That's my answer. I mean, there are a couple of different ways I could go with it. I will go Christmas Day because I feel like if that's your birthday, you kind of get jobbed a little bit when it comes to, especially like growing up as a kid, you get gypped a little bit in terms of the gifts. It's like, oh, well, it's Christmas and your birthday. So I feel like you end up a little bit less than maybe other people who have normal birthdays in like July.
Yeah.
So I'll go Christmas Day.
Okay. Nick Keezer?
I mean,
I know where you're going, though.
what? No.
Not you.
I would say my own birthday, but I think that'd be awful because my mother had me on her birthday.
And that is?
December 29th. So I would say, how about New Year's? Because, I used to have some friends go, well, what if you have a leap year? Whatever. But I think just in general, I think it would suck to kind of have your birthday going in to a new year and nobody's available. Your friends can't come to your birthday parties growing up if they're out of town.
Sure.
I can attest. But I would say New Year's. That would be the worst one. Maybe like another one would be like, I don't know, like Halloween or something like that because kids are out like running around. So that might suck growing up. So something like that.
I considered, I think I know where he's going. The other one I considered was February 29th on leap year.
But then you'd be super young.
You would be young, very young.
I'd only be like 17 or something like that right now. Yeah, the answer is absolutely New Year's Eve, which is my stupid birthday.
Is it really? Wow.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it's an absolutely terrible birthday. It's the same thing that you just said, Robby.
Yeah.
That's true when that's your birthday too. And then also just New Year's Eve, it's just awful. It's absolutely terrible. So, but I probably hate it more just because I hate birthdays in general.
Mine's
now.
close enough to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, we basically have the same experience, but I do think that there's, like, if it's on a holiday, it also gets.
I agree.
Like, Halloween's
Yes,
a pretty good call.
I agree.
Because, like, you have to combine the things. So, like,
Which I hated.
July, 19th, like my brother's July 18th. That's a great birthday.
Yeah.
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 We're all going to, yay, get Matt some birthday presents. And a few months later, like, oh, here's your combo present. Thanks a lot.
I had a buddy that has a birthday on July 4th, and he grew up thinking like the fireworks that everybody shut off were for his birthday.
So that's cool when
Not
you're
quite,
little.
buddy.
Well, maybe, I guess when you're a little kid at Halloween, you're like, wow, everybody dressed
Look at
up
all
for
these
my
people
birthday.
out here celebrating my birthday. Isn't that nice?
Look at all these ghouls and goblins celebrating me. All right, what is the greatest bowl game? It's bowl season.
It is bowl season. You go ahead. Let me think about this for a second.
I mean, to me, it's definitely the Rose Bowl, and I know I'm a Midwesterner, but I've covered it once, and it's amazing. And now I've never been in that stadium for a UCLA home game.
Yeah.
It's probably a little bit different experience because it's like 30% full. But a full Rose Bowl, the sun set on the San Gabriel Mountains. It's in the middle of the valley of the mountain. I mean, it's fantastic. I think it's clearly that's the granddaddy of them all. And as much as the Rose Bowl is a pain in the butt for all this stuff because it's like, no, you can't mess with the Rose Bowl through all this playoff stuff, it is the best game.
It's a toss-up between the Duke's Mayo Bowl
or
the newly found Pop-Tart Bowl.
Oh.
I think I may have to go Pop-Tart Bowl. If you can eat the prize, I think that's off to a good start. The Mayo Bowl is kind of gross when you get the mayonnaise dumped on top of your head.
I might throw up.
It's a little much. So I think I'll go Pop-Tart Bowl.
What if you could dip that bowl in the other bowl?
That'd be
That'd be
great.
tough.
That'd be awesome. I remember growing up, I used to enjoy watching the Tostitos Bowl. I would always tell my mom, but that's just a Fiesta Bowl. I would always want to go watch that one on television. And then I think a close second for me with me and my buddies would have been the Sugar Bowl growing up. So
SEC.
those are two great bowl games.
Fiesta Bowl was the was the Boise State, Oklahoma, probably the greatest bowl game of all time.
Statue of Liberty play.
It was awesome.
Yes. Okay, non-sports. What's the dumbest tradition in modern society?
Feels like you have something.
How
on
much
this, so
time
go
do you
ahead.
have?
You go ahead.
It's New Year's Eve.
Okay.
This is my RIP New Year's Eve edition of Choice is Yours. Like, you can't even feel comfortable going to the store to get, like, some bread on this stupid day. Like, I mean, I like having a few drinks, you know?
Yeah.
But, like, let's have a tradition where everybody gets hammered and
Right.
then drives. And I understand a lot of people are safe about it and things like that. But, like, the idea that we have this, you know, this day for just binge drinking,
Yeah.
which is really what it is.
Yeah.
And that's how it's marketed. So that's how all these holidays, they are what they're marketed as. And that's what that is. It's marketed as a binge drinking day. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I hate, you know, I may sound like a Puritan here, but I mean, it seriously, like if there's one day, first of all, I already hate it because it's my birthday.
Yeah.
It's a terrible thing to have as a birthday when you're also like young and going out.
Yeah.
And also, like, beyond that, if there's one day I will absolutely not step foot outside, it's New Year's Eve.
Mine's Valentine's Day. I can't
Ooh,
stand
that's a
it.
good one.
It's so bad. And it's like, well, you can display how much you love your wife. It's like, well, I love my wife every day. Like, it doesn't have to be just on Valentine's Day. And luckily, she also thinks Valentine's Day is the dumbest thing on the earth. And I have some people that say, oh, she just says, no, she thinks Valentine's Day is the dumbest thing on the earth. It's ridiculous to me. It's a child holiday where you exchange cards in school. Anything beyond that, stupid. Valentine's Day is the one for me.
Good one.
I think the memory that I go to the fastest, there's a few different ones that I have for you guys kind of like that. I would say when I was growing up, this made no sense to me in school, and I'm sure other people can kind of attest to all of this. Columbus Day at school makes no sense. I never understood it. Didn't understand it till a lot later. Don't even know why we should have it on the calendar for what it actually recognizes, for one. And I think it's just interesting that that's also the same time of year that we also do like the turkey, like you use your hand like as a kid and you like draw your own turkey. And then
Always
like
comes back to the turkey with Keezer.
Yeah. Hey, we're not killing turkeys though. We're making
draw on a
turkeys
hand
on
and then you're
paper
stabbing
crochet.
it.
Yeah. But I never understood Columbus Day. That was the weirdest thing for me, at least growing up.
I would tack on Valentine's Day, like sweetest day. Let's make sure we have another like
Oh, yeah.
Valentine's Day. Oh my.
Yeah.
I've got one here that I don't have a name texter here on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, but the dumbest tradition in modern society is daylight savings. Keep the time the same.
That's a good one.
I do hate some sunset at 4 p.m. like we have here. Okay, last one, sports. Who is your NFL Coach of the Year at this moment? And two weeks left, but right now, who's your NFL Coach of the Year?
I think for me, I think it's Stefanski. The fact that they are 10-5, they've had Watson go down, they brought Joe Flacco in, and they are still comfortably going to make the playoffs. And they keep playing the way they're playing right now. They got a chance to maybe be dangerous with the way that defense is. I think I will go Stefanski, but there's about 5 different ways I think I could go with it. But Stefanski is the one I'm choosing.
Nick Keezer?
I was thinking for just a second. I would say Harbaugh. I mean, look, I think the Ravens have they've flipped over from what they were last year. Lamar's had a phenomenal year, and I think you have to attribute that to how the coach has kind of run things this season, and so they've looked like a different team for me, at least, watching them out there this year. So I'd go Harbaugh.
I think Steichen and Ryans, the two AFC Colts Texans, I think they both should still be in there because, you know, and obviously if they fade down the stretch, they should be there, I think. I also would – I think kneecap biter. Should
he deserves mention
should
for
have
sure.
some kind of a mention. But I'm with you on Stefanski. I just think it's just an incredible job. Which brings me to something I got on Twitter X the other day. So this is, of course, this is from this post is from an account you muted, but this guy, someone tweeted at Kaharski and me with this. Okay, so this is a Jared tweet. Here he goes. The possibility Cleveland could end up with the number 1 seed is due to one man, Jim Schwartz.
Oh, boy.
They've had no QB. They lost their star running back. They've always had these good defensive players. Jim Schwartz has been the magic elixir. And this guy's like, do you guys agree? And Kaharski's like, of course not. The guy who hired him may be coach of the year. What about him? Everything must be overstated. Look, Jim Schwartz is really good.
Clearly.
Obviously, he has the history here a couple times. So Jim Schwartz deserves a lot of credit. He has – what's the most talented defense in the NFL?
I mean, he's got an argument for it. I mean, Philadelphia, I still think has an argument for most talent. They've not put it together always this year. San Francisco, but one of those three probably.
Exactly. So Stefanski, what they've done offensively, all of a sudden making Joe Flacco. Who's got that magic elixir, right? I mean, come on. So I think Stefanski, it's pretty amazing because there's a guy who, again, it wasn't long ago. In fact, coming in this year, it's a little bit of Stefanski isn't really working out.
And then an unnamed texter goes in and says Antonio Pierce. Now, come on,
he's done
really?
Well,
Hadn't been there long enough, but he's done a great job.
Yeah, he hasn't exactly. But I don't hate the the guy might hurt himself that day. Just won at Kansas City.
Hasn't he done enough already to earn that job? I think he has.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where I do hate the idea that you have to go with an interim coach. Like if you may want to go in a totally different, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think it's going to be real tough to not go with him after what they've done. They've done fantastic work, and if you want to talk about a D coordinator who's done tremendous work, along with Flores with Minnesota. I mean, those defenses are not the same level of talent what Jim Schwartz has, and look at what they're doing lately.
This has been The Choice is Yours here on Robby and Rexrode, presented by Jarrett Companies, above and beyond industry standards. The only company your company needs for site work, fire protection, paving, and concrete needs. If you need an estimate, call 615-515-1270 or visit JarrettCompaniesInc.com. Coming up next, the Nashville Predators back in action tonight, taking on Carolina, and they are coming off an absolute stunner over the weekend against the Dallas Stars. We'll get into that. How will the Predators respond to it? Coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
and send it down back of the net for Jason Robertson. Tried to put it back in front. That one stopped, 18 seconds remaining. Puck in front. They scramble, and Pavelski is celebrating a score to tie the game with 13 seconds to go. Puck is dumped into the zone by Esa Lindell. 4 seconds to go, a shot, and the score! The Stars score with 2 seconds remaining to take the lead. You gotta be kidding me.
A stunner for the Preds last time out. They're up late in the game. Looks like they've got victory in their grasp, up 2-1. They give up 2 goals to the Stars in 15 seconds, and they lose in regulation last Saturday at home against the Stars. They'll be back at it tonight at Bridgestone against the Carolina Hurricanes in the first game back after the Christmas break. That was a tough one the other day, Joe. So Craig Smith, former Pred, ties it up at 2, right in the slot in the middle of kind of a loose puck in the crease area there. And then Yanni Hakanpää, the game winner, one of the great names in hockey. Hakanpää with the game winner for the Stars.
Makes
so the
me
Preds,
think of H&R Puffin stuff for some reason.
It's very good. So the Preds go from what looks like a win to then, at least it goes to overtime. You get a point, and then you'll see what happens, to nothing in the span of 15 seconds. That was a tough one. That's one of those ones where you walk in the locker room after the game, and you can just sense the frustration and the disgust in the room. And that was palpable after the game Saturday.
I bet it was. Yeah, that was with about a couple minutes left. We left home. It was who was with me? I don't even remember which kid or kids was with me. But we left, and we were driving around, put on Pete, listen to the, was like, okay, this game, they'll wrap it. I mean, probably worth hanging around because that late game scramble is always intense. Of course, Forsberg had a chance to end this thing for
about
good
3 minutes left.
With about 3 left, hits the post, and boy, does that one hurt. But the stun of that call, look, we all see these games where a team ties. That happens a fair amount of the time when a team ties up a team that late in a game. We've all seen that. I'm trying to remember the 13 seconds to tie, and then the winner immediately after the face-off. I'm sure
first time in history of the league, right, Nick? Like with 15 seconds that you've given up the lead and lost it in regulation.
It had never happened.
Ever.
Never.
In the last 15 seconds.
Never.
Yeah.
And it kind of felt like when the Predators beat the Avalanche, too, except that did not break any records. And it broke a Predators record.
Yeah.
But this was to win in regulation with less than 15 seconds, which was insane.
The crazy thing to me is I think that's you guys tell me. I trust your eyes way more than mine, but I think that's some of the best hockey I've seen them play this year. I mean, I thought that for
First period,
stretches
for sure.
of that game, they looked real. Again, and it's relative to the opponent too, right? I mean, this is a championship contender
for sure. Like I thought they came out and played really well. Third period they were bad, and even before the goals they gave up, I mean, I think halfway through the period they had one shot.
Yeah.
So
they're
spent
playing
a lot
too
of
much
time
defense
in their own end, and they talked about that a little bit after the game. I mean, at some point when you spend that much time in your own end, you're gonna get scored on. But that's a tough one. And look, I guess you could view it a couple different ways. Either the break comes at a really good time after that, where you can kind of get away from it for a minute, or and some people, when you lose a game like that, you want to play again like the next day to try and get that taste out of your mouth. And we're going to see. I mean, they put themselves, after a 5-10 start, you get to the Christmas break, and they put themselves in a good spot. They're in a playoff spot. They're in a wild card spot right now. They got 38 points. They're 3 up on St. Louis, which is right on the edge of things for the wild card. They're 2 up on Arizona, who's got the last wild card spot. But I mean, you win that game in regulation, and you're at 40, and Dallas is at 42. And you're right there behind them. Instead, you're at 38 and they're at 44 in first place in the division. I mean, that could be a game that's pretty important at the end of the season there that you just let get away from you and didn't at least get a point out of. So how do you respond tonight? I mean, you've got Carolina tonight, who I think it's fair to say is underachieved a little bit this year.
Yep.
Still good, though. I mean, they're 17-13-4. They've not been able to get very good goaltending, as the Predators found out firsthand last time they played them. So can they get back on the winning track tonight? You got Detroit on the road later this week, Washington on the road, so some Eastern Conference opponents coming up. I think it's important, like tonight, to come out and respond the right way, because that was one of those losses that can be crushing.
Yeah, I do think that the timing of it, as I'm sure as hard as it was, I think it's better than other scenarios, just in terms of, I think you really do get, whether you want it or not at the moment, you do get an actual reset, I think, when you have like the holiday like this.
Yeah.
And everybody retreats to their families and things like that. So, like, I think they're probably, like, I don't feel like this is going to drag for them. Doesn't mean they're going to beat Carolina. Carolina's really good. But I'd be surprised if they don't come out and play well in their own building tonight and respond to this. Whereas a loss like that if it's just like, then you have a game, let's say you had to wait an extra day, they have to wait 2 days and then play. Like, I feel like it would be more likely to affect you in that game. But I could be wrong.
What do you make of the Cody Glass stuff? So Cody Glass, it's been a rough year for him. So he gets hurt, and then he's out of the lineup for, I think, 3 weeks. He comes back in for a couple games, gets hurt again, and has been trying to kind of catch up ever since then. He's only played in 14 games. So he's got 1 goal, 1 assist in 14 games. The goal that he scored came the last time that he played, which was at the end of garbage time of the Vancouver game last week, and he's been a scratch in the 2 games since then. I watch him out there, and there hadn't been much. I mean, and I don't know how much of that is him, how much of that is the injuries that he's been trying to kind of catch a moving train as things have been going on here. But, when you think back to last season, as they were making this transition to getting a little younger and moving on from some of the guys that we've talked about, Glass was a big part of it, right? Like he got an elevated role. He was on basically the second line. At one time was on the quote-unquote first line and playing with Matt Duchene. And this year it's been basically nothing. I mean, they haven't gotten anything from him. Like, are you concerned at this point? What do you make of what we've seen, or maybe more importantly, what we haven't seen from Glass so far this year?
Well, I think he's leveling off, and that's the thing. It's like there's so much of let's find out about this guy or that guy. And we said going in, is he actually like a guy who can be a top 6 player long-term for this team? And also, I mean, right now, I would say no. And I'm sure that the injuries, and they go back years now, would have something to do with that. But I also wonder, it's interesting, too, how like a guy like, and again, injury's part of the story this year, but some guys in this new system are like, I mean, Colton Sissons is having this ridiculous year, and obviously a different role, and he does everything. But I'm just saying, some guys are flourishing, some guys are not.
Yep.
I don't know that you'd put any of the system on that for what Cody Glass is doing. But I do think that, it's like with each guy, there's like, okay, so where is the ceiling and how close are they going to get to it? And I think with him, he can be a solid part of this franchise, but I think we are seeing that it's trending toward, maybe a little bit lesser role.
You know what the analogy was that he gave me was, he said that it's like when you're watching Space Jam and all the powers get sucked out of you and you're not yourself. And he says that's what he feels like right now. It's not someone that he's proud of right now. And he's aware of that. He's
referring to the injuries.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's referring to how it's just been a year where things have not fallen for him, and it's all a mental game. And he said scoring that goal didn't mean anything, but it did mean that he needed to be aware of where he needed to be on the ice. So that meant more to him about positioning.
In terms of getting in front of the net, which he's not done very often.
His last year, there was a lot of talk about that, and he had a stretch where he was doing that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, he's played in 14 games, so obviously he's missed a ton of time. But, like, I can count on one hand, like, the number of quality chances that I can remember him generating this year, which is not good. I mean, you expect better than that. So I'm interested to see what the lineup looks like tonight. Does he get back in there? I mean, he's been a healthy scratch for 2 games in a row. What does the lineup look like tonight against Carolina? This is always an interesting game because they've not been allowed to practice all week. So today's the first day they can be on the ice. They'll be on the ice at morning skate. Carolina has to leave today to get here, so This game's always kind of a crapshoot. We'll see what happens tonight at Bridgestone. It's going to be interesting to see what the lineup looks like.
Yeah, and I still feel like Cody Glass has a place on this team. That would be really disappointing if he doesn't have some kind of role and find a little bit of a groove. But maybe we're seeing some limitations here that are gonna be in play long term.
615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we'll take your thoughts on the Vols, 615-737-1025. Vols coming up in action next week in the Citrus Bowl. Who's going to be starting at quarterback for Tennessee? We'll get into that. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls. Middle Tennessee's best medical care and the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Wednesday morning. We'll be joined by Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com in the 8 o'clock hour, getting into all things Tennessee Titans with him. Looking forward to that. Right now, I got some tickets to give away to see the Nashville Predators take on Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks coming up on Tuesday, January 2nd. Be caller 5, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Caller number 5 will win a pair of tickets to see the Preds take on the Blackhawks on Tuesday, January the 2nd, 615-737-1025. Joe, the Vols in action coming up next week as they take on Iowa in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. A lot of stuff going on there. There'll be some Cheez-Its out there.
Yep, Cheez-Its and
devour.
Cheez-Its, which I love, and some citrus.
There will be that.
The acidity in there. So
got all the bases covered.
Yep.
The extra toasty's my favorite, Joe.
Well,
Oh,
there you go.
bro, I love those.
Bro,
Bro,
let me tell you.
got a big box of the extra toasty at home.
Going to be a spicy matchup between Tennessee and Iowa, which I can already sense the excitement teeming from Joe Rexrode sitting next to me as he prepares to travel down to Orlando to watch this thing take place. Big question heading into the game, Joe. Who's going to be starting at quarterback for Tennessee? Will it be Joe Milton? Will it be Nico? And they've thrown, we've kind of thrown out the idea of, like, if you're Milton, how do you balance maybe needing all the reps you can get, all the tape you can get, with what could be an ugly game coming up against Iowa. Pretty much every game that Iowa plays is an ugly game. They've got a really good defense, and they do a good job of mucking things up in there and making it gross. And then you watch them play offensive football, and it is offensive to watch them play offensive football. So, I mean, if you told me right now the final score in this Citrus Bowl game was going to be 14-12 one way or the other, I'd say, yeah, that sounds about right. But going to be interesting to see who lines up at quarterback for Tennessee once the game rolls around.
I'm glad. Thank you for that. Was a very, very good and extensive lead-in.
Thank you
to me talking in the time that you were talking there, and I went to Twixer.
Twix.
I realized that I actually, and I never retweeted because I'm like, I don't know, and whatever. It was the holidays. What day was it? Was it like Christmas Eve? But Matt Zenitz, who 24/7 Sports had a tweet that Nico's starting. I'm like, okay, well, Matt's a good reporter, and he gets a ton of he's a portal guy. He's a big time portal reporter. It's a lot of the portal stuff first. And I just realized that thanks to Ryan Callahan, friend of the show, this is a fake account, so it's not true.
Well, I didn't look either, so
yeah. So there we go.
Good thing I didn't retweet it.
I thought it was a weird thing. Yeah, I looked at it and was like, okay, that's interesting. I thought it was a weird thing that Nico would start and Milton would just kind of pop in for a series or two. Like, yeah, Joe, here's a tribute series from Joe. I mean, like if it's Joe, all right, we got 8 seconds left. We're at our own 9. It's almost halftime. Go throw a Hail Mary. Now that would that would make sense. But, yeah, okay. Well, good to know that that's fake Matt Zenitz reporting that. I think that I do think that some Nico early and possibly often is certainly in order. I know Vols fans want it. I think there's a good chance it happens. Also, it's kind of interesting with Joe Milton, just on the lack of communication on him for this game.
Agreed.
Right now. And I mean, frankly, you Vols, the Vols beat that we like to have on the show, but also make fun of sometimes. I mean, no one asked him. No one asked Heupel the direct question about Joe Milton his last press conference, which was disappointing to me. And it's a little bit hazy, which I think speaks to maybe on the Milton camp side a little bit of uncertainty, which I get because Iowa can make any quarterback look bad.
Oh yeah,
like I could make a case if I were Joe Milton's agent. Like, you know what? How important is it to go out there and go like 17 for 29 for 143 yards, a pick, and a touchdown.
Right.
Because that's like basically what Iowa does to you. So I don't think his stock is going to be affected that much either way by the bowl game. I've always thought that Joe probably wanted to finish the season out with his teammates. And he's been one of the leaders of this team. He stuck it out through all this. Whatever Vols fans think about him, I mean, I think you had to tip your cap to him for sticking it out and getting better. He has gotten better. He just hasn't gotten as good as people were hoping he would be this year.
Well, and the flip side of that is also interesting. If let's say he makes the decision not to play, and he sits out and he says, you know what, I'm going to the Senior Bowl. I'll get some evaluation there, and that will help my draft status more than lining up and playing against Iowa, which maybe it will. We'll see. I mean, that's a heck of a debut, that's a heck of a start for Nico. Like, hey, here's Iowa. Have fun with that, kid.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Because with the way Iowa plays, it's probably not going to look great for Tennessee offensively.
Right. I mean, they basically – and look, take this Iowa defense – which is really good. I mean, you think about the pressure they're under with that offense, which is one of the worst offenses. It's just atrocious.
In the history of football?
Yeah, I mean, it's just awful. And so you think about the pressure then that goes in the defense, and they still perform the way they do. It's really impressive. Now, if you took this defense and put it against Tennessee's offense last year, that's something I'd like to see.
Yes.
Because I'm not sure they can – when those guys were because the difference is the team that has obviously just handled – Heupel's offense has been Georgia because it's NFL guys at every single spot winning,
one-on-one battles.
And schematically, they do great too, but that's what it is, right? Iowa is just basically, like, for the most part, they play too deep and they keep everything in front of them and they play zone and they just will not give up the big play. So that's and so it's just very frustrating to play against and frustrating to not try to force something here or there. I mean, even if you saw the Big Ten championship game, they did awfully well. It's finally just collapsed on them because their offense was just an atrocity.
Is it going to be the Dylan Sampson show at running back, you think?
Well, so, yeah, and I believe credible reports that Jabari Small is not going to be in the bowl game, which is interesting. I assume that means that he's going to transfer. I think he has one more year.
And Wright is declaring for the draft. He's already put that out there.
Wright is going to the NFL. He's out. So Small, I assume, is going to go somewhere else. And probably, I would assume that Small. Oh, it's interesting because with Wright out of the picture, Small would still get a lot of work next year. I mean, Sampson is too talented. I think
he's been running there since Travis Henry's in the backfield. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Sampson is too talented to me to in his third year not ascend and become the main guy. I think he's got to become a little bit more physical, and then everything is there for him. But Small would get a lot of work.
I thought so too.
He got a lot, maybe more work this year than I would have given him. So that's an interesting decision. Now Selden is also a guy they like, so maybe that's kind of the duo next year, and maybe the duo in the bowl game. There's going to be a lot of interesting. I mean, I can't wait to see this. Secondary for the Vols in this game.
You got anybody left?
I mean, we're going to see
playing?
Ricky Gibson. We're going to see Jordan Matt. We're going to see these young guys that they are
hesitant to put out
big
there.
Recruits.
Yeah.
Like they're going to have to be the secondary next year. Now, the Oregon State transfer they got for next year, I think, is absolutely a big deal for them.
Yes, no question about that. But it's going to be an interesting matchup. And look, I say it's going to be a snooze fest and just a sloppy football. Who knows? Like maybe Tennessee's offense goes out there and the tempo that they play with is a lot for Iowa to handle. And look, that's the thing. Like you get to 21, 24 points in this game, then you're probably home free, given that Iowa offense would be my guess.
One would think, right? You know what I'm
ready
sick
for a
of?
38-35 barn burner between the Hawkeyes and the Vols coming up at Orlando?
God,
be awesome.
How amazing would that be? You know what I'm sick of is Kaharski with his bitchy little text to me on the day that he's coming in. Here's his little text on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHand.com. Tip your kit to Milton for sticking it out as opposed to quitting? ... Kaharski. No, he could have gone to another school, Paul. There's this thing called the transfer portal where players go to different schools. It's interesting. We'll talk about it when you come in here. We'll kind of give you the the latest on college football.
The transfer portal, yes, we'll do that. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Speaking of college football, the college football playoff coming up the same day. By the way, what a great lead-in. You got Tennessee and Iowa and that beautiful brand of football. It's like, all right, now that you've had the appetizer, here's Michigan, Alabama, and have fun with that. It could be just a doozy of football.
I mean, it's basically like you got filet mignon, so what's the appetizer? How about some Cheez-Its?
It's pretty good stuff. We'll get into the college
do
football
like Cheez-Its.
playoff coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Join Jared Stillman, Chris Sanders, and Derek Mason at Twin Peaks and Cool Springs this Sunday from 9:30 to 11:30 for our NFL pregame show. They'll break down the Titans' Week 17 matchup against the Texans and give you the latest updates before the game. Our NFL pregame show presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment and Beast Unleashed. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, live from our 102.5 The Game studio, brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, talking all things Titans. He'll probably be here beforehand. You ready for the Rex rant, too?
Yeah, well, today's going to be
does.
a Recipe rant.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. I can do whatever I want with it.
I don't know what that means, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, it's going to be I found the perfect recipe for something, so I'm going to share it with the listeners because I'm here to help and serve.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
615.
If that doesn't get them tuning in all across Middle Tennessee.
I don't know what will.
Oh, boy.
615-737-1025, our phone number. So we discussed the Tennessee-Iowa game. Directly after the Tennessee-Iowa game on New Year's Day will be Alabama and Michigan coming up at 4 o'clock, Texas and Washington in the 2-3 matchup, the nightcap at 7:45 in the college football playoff. Going to be really interesting to see how this all shakes out. Michigan's a 2-point favorite against Alabama, and obviously I think back to the selection show where Michigan was the 1 seed, and they looked around and said, "Oh, good, it's Alabama that we've got to play in the first round." Very muted reaction to what we saw there. A lot of people picking Alabama to pull off the upset.
They so badly want the alternative reality of Florida State's, and it's just like, yeah! Not that they're like cheering Florida State, but it's just a little, all right, we got a matchup. It's a big matchup. Tough team. Go Blue, it's a tough team. They're like, yes, Florida State, they're in.
And
It's Alabama.
Oh, boy.
But, basically, that means they're signed up for what I think is a really close matchup.
I agree.
I think it's a toss-up game. I think Alabama's toughness is apparent, but also their flaws are still apparent, even late in the season. I mean, they're not consistent offensively at all.
No.
And now if they play like they played against Georgia, then I think they're going to win the national championship. But I don't know that they will.
Well, that's that. I mean, the week before that, if they play like they played against Auburn, they're going to get beat by Michigan by 2 touchdowns. I mean,
exactly.
It's been a little bit up and down from Alabama this year, and it's not the same Alabama team as we've seen at times walk into the playoff here. Now, having said that, and you brought this up, you look at their roster, and just strictly by recruiting rankings, it is, I think, the most talented roster in the history of college football.
Yeah.
So
since
those things started being tracked.
Yeah, it's absurdly
So
talented.
they got a lot of talent, a lot of ability out there. Like, it comes down to Milroe. Like, if Milroe makes the right decisions, we've seen it. When he's on, they're hard to beat. And when he's not, they're vulnerable. And he was on in the Georgia game. And I will say, like, his growth this year has been pretty fun to watch from a standpoint of when he started the year, it was basically drop back. If your first read's not there, take off running, and then every now and then we'll just sit back there and wait, and we'll throw it deep. And I do think that he has developed a pretty good passing game and a pretty good they've developed an intermediate passing game as the year has gone on. He's gotten a lot better. Now, how will he be against this Michigan defense? I don't know. I think this is clearly going to be their toughest challenge of the season. But, I mean, I was kind of just scoping around yesterday. A lot of people picking Alabama to pull off the upset. Like, if I had to assign a percentage to just the stuff that I saw yesterday, I'd go like 70%. There are people who are picking Alabama to win the game.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if by kickoff the money has moved to the point where they might even be a slight favorite, or it might be right at the pick'em, point. But the thing about Alabama is they have all that talent, and I think it's more apparent on defense. They have a very talented offensive line, but they don't have that skill guy that they've had in years past.
Agreed.
That scares you. They don't have that star or multiple stars. They have good backs and receivers, but they're not great. They're not overwhelming there. And Michigan has really good corners. So, I think Milroe quarterback run game as an intent has to be a huge part of this for Alabama. You got to take that extra guy, and you have to make Michigan honor that and use that a lot, I think, in this game.
How important is this game for Michigan and for Harbaugh specifically, given everything that's happened this year with the Connor Stallion stuff, and they've made it to the playoff 2 years in a row. They've not been able to win a playoff game once they've gotten there to this point. Now you're the number 1 overall seed heading into the tournament. How important is this game, do you think, for Harbaugh from that standpoint, given what the discourse will look like if they lose the game to Alabama?
Yeah. Well, speaking of discourse, the Simpsons now have a segment where they rip on Jim Harbaugh's cheating.
Yes.
So there's always going to be that. That's always going to be hanging over this team, and maybe it means something's vacated later. I mean, I have no idea. In the meantime, they also have the NFL thing, and reports that there's this contract Michigan. They were supposed to sign this extension a while ago. It hasn't happened, but it's supposed to have like an no NFL clause in it. So, I think there's a real solid chance that this is his last year, that he's on to the NFL, back to the NFL after this. I will continue to say, if Michigan wins 2 games, I understand that they created the issue. It's self-inflicted, and it's the coaches more than the players. But if they win this thing, and again, I'm looking at the players, I guess, more than the coaches, I think it's absolutely legitimate. I mean, that's an amazing amount of distraction to deal with as players when your coach is not there, when you're constantly just the conversation around them. It's been the biggest scandal in sports this year.
Tears in the post-game press conference from the other coach. Yeah, there's a lot they've had to fight through.
Yeah, I think it's legit. If it gets vacated later, then that's what it is. I mean, the thing is, those things don't even like reading a story recently about Kenny Payne. It's just people still count their 2013 national championship. I mean, that doesn't mean much really in the big scheme of things. But I mean, I think Michigan's good enough to win it. Last year, I think they were good enough. I mean, I thought Michigan and Georgia were going to have a great game in the championship game, and then they completely
Stallions got outfoxed.
Well, it's pretty clear. It's been clearly reported. Like TCU did not. There's signs where they
Changed
switched them up, and all of a sudden they go lose by 1 million to Georgia. They really robbed us of a great game. But I think they're good enough. If it's like their quarterback too. He looked very mortal against Iowa, but I thought he made some incredible plays against Ohio State, and he's a first-round pick. I mean, that's the difference. Harbaugh has not been able to find and develop these quarterbacks. Everybody's talking about the quarterback whisperer. It's years and years of trying to find one. Well, he's got a first-round pick now. So if he plays like that, then I think they have a great chance to win this game.
Speaking of quarterback matchups, you've got Penix for Washington, Quinn Ewers for Texas, and two offenses that have been really good all year long. Washington really proved something to me in the Pac-12 title game against Oregon. It was a great game. I thought they displayed a lot of toughness in that game. Their defense made some big plays. I'm interested to see what that one looks like. Can Texas hang in there with? I mean, you look at the line, and I believe Texas is the favorite. Let me go back and double-check that. Yeah, Texas, a 4.5-point favorite, which was a little surprising to me given what Washington has done this year. But that one has a chance, I think, to have some fireworks in it. Look, I'm calling a high-scoring game.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, Texas is. I mean, they're loaded too. I mean, they're up there among, but that's typical for Texas. They do have, I think, one of the best pass rushing teams in college football. They got high picks on that defense. So is that too? That's where it's interesting. Like, can Washington, as much as we talk about Penix and Adunze and those receivers, they've had some huge rushing games.
Yep.
They have a really good back. He ran for 200 plus at USC, which I know is no huge feat this year, but still, they've had the balance. If Texas is going to dominate up front defensively, what does that mean? I mean, I still think that passing game can get things done. I think Kalen DeBoer is one of the best coaches in college football. I think it's going to be a great game. I think Washington has a real chance to win it, but there's an advantage, a clear advantage for Texas in the trenches.
Who's winning the national title?
I'm going to go Alabama. I just think that as flawed as they are, they've got that tough, resilient team DNA to them. I mean, think about it. Think about 20-7 Vols at the half, and I know they've gotten better since then, but some things went really wrong for Tennessee, right? Like right away after halftime. But like what Alabama to me showed in that game when really they should have been down more than that, I was impressed with the intangibles. They are special with that team, and I think Saban has done one of his best jobs, which is saying something.
I think they're going to win too. Which, congratulations to Michigan. Way to go.
Texas. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Coming up next, it's time for Preds Pick to Click. Be the first caller, 615-737-1025, our phone number. If you guess a goal scorer for the Preds tonight, you want a pair of tickets to a future Nashville Predators home game. We'll do that next, the special time for Preds Pick to Click with Paul Kuharski coming in the 8 o'clock hour. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
for Preds Picks to click.
And the shot of the score.
Do you think you know who will score a goal in tonight's Predators game?
Little give and go.
Shoot your shot for a chance to win Preds tickets. Call 615-737-1025 now. Pick to Click is brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. Visit tjandersonhomes.com to see why they are preferred so often. It's Pick to Click, now on Robby and Rexrode.
It's that time of the day. Time for Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold. Preds back in action tonight, taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. Panthers might want to try hockey.
Well, they probably hold them to 3. If they get 4 goals, they can beat the Panthers.
Back in action tonight against the Hurricanes. Puck drop 7 o'clock, pregame 6 o'clock here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. The standings are as follows in Preds Pick to Click. The listeners and Joe Rexrode tied for first place with eight correct answers. Nick Keyser with 5 in third place. And I still have not gotten one right since November 9th. 2 correct answers in the competition.
It's time for you to just start picking people who shouldn't be expected to score goals anyway, so you don't curse the actual goal scorers.
Well, we'll see what happens. With that in mind, let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in Zach. Zach, good morning. Thanks for calling in. Who is your pick to click for the Nashville Predators?
Hey, good morning, guys. I'm going to go with Ryan O'Reilly.
Ryan O'Reilly, the selection. Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Y'all have a good one.
You too. Joe, I am up first today.
Don't do it.
So should I – you tell me I should take one for the team and maybe go in a different direction than the obvious?
I think that – I mean, did you see that nice goal that Jeremy Lazon had last week?
Yeah, I did.
Tell me he's not going to do that again.
I'm going to go Forsberg. O'Reilly, Forsberg off the board. Joe Rexrode, your pick to click.
Philip, I hope you're listening. You probably are. Just understand what happened right there. In fact – This might go back to the empty net the other day. Like, knowing that he was about to pick you, you missed the empty net.
Put it off the bar? Yeah.
So, I'm just saying. Is my pick?
It is.
Okay. Well, I've got a Roman Yossi power play goal coming tonight.
Okay. O'Reilly, Forsberg, Yossi off the board. Keyser, your pick to click.
I'm going to go with Luke Evangelista this evening.
I like it.
Pretty boy Vincenzo.
Yes. Great name. O'Reilly, Forsberg, Yossi, Evangelista, the selections today in Preds Pick to Click, presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold. Preds back in action tonight at Bridgestone Arena, taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. We welcome in our friend Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com to the program in a very frigid studio today. Paul,
good morning. I wore a heavy sweatshirt. I thought it would be sufficient, and it is not. It's not sufficient at all. And I'm bracing myself because I think Joe, for his rant, is going to give us a recipe. That's what I took from that.
That's right.
And recipe sharing is not a rant.
It's the Recipe.
Because it sounds like it's a good recipe. He doesn't understand that it has to be a disastrous recipe for it to be a
I
rant.
can do whatever I want with the rant. You're going to sit there and like it. And then you're going to make the recipe.
Here's what the rant's
and your
become.
family's going to enjoy it.
Joe talking.
It's like,
What
Now
could be
here's the
better?
time for Joe to talk.
What could be better? Yeah.
I need to get
mean,
in
I,
here
ha- I
for
did a
daily
nice
for the rant.
I
I'll
did
just
a
show you
nice
what a
reading.
rant is.
Last time was a nice reading, you know?
it was a nice reading. And several texts about that reading.
I do feel so badly for you that you're going to this game on Monday and you're going to be writing while the 2 games that are worth a damn are going to be on television.
Yeah. Well, don't worry. I will be writing very slowly as I watch, well, at least the Michigan-Bama game, and hopefully I'll be done by the second one.
I'm sure there's a 3,000-word story on Tennessee and Iowa coming.
It's going to be a poem.
Yeah, it's going to be just beautiful.
Breaking down all the 3 and outs. Let's rank the 3 and outs.
I'm having trouble finding your stuff on The Athletic. I feel like they're burying you.
Yeah.
Are they burying you?
I mean, I don't know.
You don't know
so.
where your
I hope
placement
not.
is? You don't look at the site?
I mean, basically it's all on your preferences of teams, right? But
And
so
I've
I don't.
got the Titans picked out, trust me.
Okay. Do you have like Preds and Balls and all that stuff picked out?
Yeah, Yankees, Chelsea.
Okay. Well, I don't write a lot about them. But, yeah, I mean, when I write a column about one of the teams, I've always had it prominently placed. Are they fooling me? Is it just for me that
I
they're
think
making
it
it
might
look
be
like
just
it's
for
like
you.
prominent on the site, but
I
actually
think
it's
despite
like
the fact that I have the Titans selected, they're burying you.
Yeah.
Because the last couple I have not seen, and I think they're punishing you for not going on the road.
I didn't write a column off the other day, so if you were looking for one, I
Yeah.
did not write off that.
You just did those
glorious
little
game.
notes. Those little notes don't really exist anymore, it seems like.
Well, no. So
They're in the running NFL.
yeah,
thing.
we don't
That's all
have
you
the we
wrote
don't have
for?
the briefs. Well, see, but sometimes we do headlines. You don't know if it's going to be a headline or not. You do the takeaways, and then sometimes I'll do a headline if the game's prominent enough. In this case, it just went. It went in the
was not
blog.
prominent.
It was Seahawks Titans. It went in the
was
blog.
not.
Well, I thought it'd be front page. Seahawks Titans with Tannehill back at
I mean,
quarterback.
the Seahawks are
Nice
in the playoff race.
dramatic
It's
finish.
important for them.
Yeah.
So
There's so many bad teams in the playoff race. They're touting 24 teams are still alive, like it's the greatest thing ever. And you go look at the bottom teams that are still alive, they stink.
Well, the thing is, we were talking about this earlier too,
It's
PK.
the NHL.
The divisions, like this division, the AFC South has turned into a bad division. Like Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence has got a new injury every week. They've lost 4 in a row. C.J. Stroud's been out with the Texans. They've had Case Keenum gunning it around back there at quarterback. I mean, you got 3 teams at 8-7 right now. It's interesting to watch, especially the collapse of Jacksonville over
Your
the last
guy,
month.
Rexy's guy, Bill Simmons. You like Bill Simmons?
all right.
Oh, God, he's insufferable.
I
Well,
mean, there's
first off,
worse than
He's a great writer to read, and so what he did is I'm going to stop writing because that's hard, and I'm just going to podcast because that's easy with my nasally voice, talking about Boston constantly from Los Angeles,
A lot of
and
Celtics
tying
talk.
everything into the NBA. So, but he did, there's a nice snippet. Of course, he had to compare it to the NBA, but about do you pay Trevor Lawrence now? And the answer is, yeah. I mean, of course you pay Trevor Lawrence because we're talking about all these guys who are terrible. But where is Trevor Lawrence? I mean, this was the year, and he could wind up being the third or fourth. I'm not an Anthony Richardson guy, but I mean, he's not on the track at all. I mean, Jacksonville week after week has had the
So
chance
why,
to
if
win
you don't
the
think
game
he's on the
that
track,
takes
why
him.
do you, of course, pay him?
Because who else?
Yeah, I mean, right.
Yeah, you don't pay him. You franchise him, and you go through the dance and everything. But where do you get the better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence? So you have to pay him. The NFL kind of is built to force the process, which is unfortunate. I don't like it. I don't think you should pay him. But if you don't pay him, then what happens?
Yeah. But
Somebody pays.
But that's still different. Like, to
Somebody
me, if
pays.
they do the tag thing, like
Right.
Washington, that is different than when you say pay him. I mean, I'm thinking pay him.
No, well,
Long-term
you
Extension.
tag him
Yeah.
to stall it for a year, but after you stall it for a year, what do?
Well,
You probably pay him. You pray that in that year he
He
turns
just-
into the
right.
guy that you want him to.
Well, if
be.
you're them, you're praying like the injuries have been a big part of it too. He's had the high ankle sprain, the concussion, and now a shoulder thing that he's dealing with. So he's been banged up out there, but they just look bad right now. And they still, I mean, they're hanging on to the top spot in the division
They're
via
the best team
tiebreaker
in
at
the
the
division.
moment. But
Talent
look bad.
wise, they're the best team in the division. But they're going to go to the playoffs and tank out, right?
yeah,
I mean,
right
they
now
have 2 games to get it right.
Well, I mean, they're if they win I have no idea. They're all tied. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with them. Could they not come here and lose in the finale? I could see the Titans doing that. But if they do obviously win, they're going to have a home game. I mean, if they turn it around in time here, figure it out, get him back, and we don't know if he's playing this Sunday. Now he's got the shoulder thing, but could they win a home game against who would it be? It'd be like, well, if it's the Browns,
Cleveland.
that's a little dicey. But
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, like, there's no way they can beat Flacco at home. I mean, Flacco's been amazing. All credit to him. That defense is ridiculous. But my goodness, they could.
But they're nothing like what they should be, given their talent, given the division that they've been in. They should have run away with this thing, no matter how much incrementally better Houston and Indianapolis have gotten. I mean, it's a big disappointment down there, and I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, Peterson's not in trouble or anything like that, but they got to do some. There's got to be some degree of shakeup down there.
well, luckily for them, they've got Carolina coming up this Sunday, and then the Titans the week after that.
You would
So
think
you
that they would
that
get healthy
be,
on that. And can the Titans beat them? Sure, on the any given Sunday thing. But I mean, if you got Trey Avery out there against Calvin Ridley, no, I don't think they can.
So the Jags, just so I'm clear, they are tied, obviously. What did they do against Indy and
They
Houston?
lost 2 to one of them.
Well, they split with Houston.
And I
Because
think
Houston
they got
went
swept
down there and smoked them.
I think they got swept by the Colts.
But no. Well, it says they win the tiebreaker over Indianapolis based on head-to-head. They must not have gotten swept by the Colts.
They may have split with both of them. I have to go back and look. I know they split with Houston.
But that would tell me then, since they don't play them, either one of them, that would tell me, they won. They killed Indy at home, and they swept the Colts. So there you go. So they're going to win the division as long as they win the last 2 games.
Because they have a good division
But
record.
the Titans could screw
spoil
that
it.
up.
Well,
Screw that up.
Titans got a couple chances.
I mean, there are a lot
Houston
of
coming up.
things you can say about the Tennessee Titans this year. If they if they lose these last 2 games, and go winless in the division, I mean that's one of the biggest things in the minus mark, in the minus column.
Well, especially when you consider that you've played Gardner Minshew in that span and you've played Case Keenum in that span, and you still wouldn't have found a way to win one of those games, and it's not good.
I think most fans out there would say they didn't want to play Case Keenum. That's the kind of game the Titans lose.
Yeah.
They'd rather see C.J. Stroud.
Well, like Tyrod Taylor a couple years ago. The
Yeah.
number
They
1 seed
lose to
team
bad-
lost at home to Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, they lose
and the
to bad
Texans.
quarterbacks with frequency.
Does Vrabel ever beat the Texans at home since he had that ridiculous win in 2018? Like, now that I think about
Was
it,
that home?
I
I
feel
think
like
that was
they
on the
come
road.
in here and like they shocked. They also, the year that Ferkser got hit at the goal line and
Well,
it went
surely
the other
one of
way.
these times where Derrick Henry's ran for 275 yards on Houston, surely they beat them during that.
That's true. They did. They did have
A
the
lot
one.
of those games are on the road, though.
They have. Yeah, he
is
goes
true.
there and really tears up to the point of this week. We need to get in that matchup.
Well, we're going to.
We're going
coming
to
up.
dig in on that matchup, PK. I hope you got all your matchups.
What do you
ready.
think the chances are that we see Levis and Stroud in that game?
Yeah, what do you think the chances are of Levis, PK?
I can't pretend to know. I mean, I think they test him out today a little bit and then see how he feels tomorrow morning. And I know that 80% of the people that are listening to us say, forget Levis, get Willis out there. We got to lose this game. I should be in the Southern accent. We got to lose this game.
Let's say, switch it up.
Pitch and catch. We don't need to pitch and catch. Just let Willis run around back there, fumble it, run out of bounds, short of the sticks on 4th down, do all that crazy stuff, and give us Joe Alt.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Coming up next, it's time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode, which proves to be, this is going to be beautiful. Looking
Recipe.
forward to it. The Recipe.
It's not a rant. It's not a rant. Today it's a
If
recipe.
I say it's a rant, it's a rant.
No, that's not how it works. A rant has a definition. You're a reward guy.
Make your silly underdog picks today for your chance to win weekly prizes. You can play at theGameNashville.com or the 1025 The Game app. Silly underdog picks presented by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment, let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
New turkey stew, new piggy stew, new beef stew. The veggie wedgie stew.
I want a milkshake. I want potato chips.
You'll get nothing like it.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning at 7:45 here on the program. The Recipe, as he has aptly named it today. I'm interested to see where this goes.
And look at Keezer over here coming with a food themed intro. That was
chef.
the Muppet Show, correct?
Yes,
I believe that was.
the Swedish chef.
Well done. And you know the Swedish chef. You're a bit of an old soul, too. Not quite Robby level. You're not quite old as hell like this guy next to me, but you're an old soul. All right.
Is he older than you?
Me?
Are you kidding me? Did you just say that out loud?
Robby sees my youthfulness, and that's part of our
Look at
bond.
him. Hello, kids.
Look at me.
Yeah.
I have
part
no
of-
hair.
That's
Well,
part of our
come on.
bond is that
Come
Robby
on.
sees the youthfulness in me.
Oh,
he sees the
Lord.
good in me, kind of like Obi-Wan and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is great. No, this is a good rant, too. So
Write it down because
yeah.
you need a bank.
Apparently. So what kind of food awareness rants have I had? Plums, for sure. I definitely had a plum rant because we all talk about what a plum assignment, but no one eats plums. Plums are good. You like plums?
Sugar plums are good. I don't like
sugar
plums.
plums.
Well, sugar plums, visions of sugar
I
plums
know.
dancing in
I
their head.
understand. Your
Christmas
Hans
was 3
Christian
days ago.
Andersen Christmas. Okay. No, but actual plums. You don't like plums?
No,
Okay. Corned beef hash?
I like corned beef. I don't really like corned beef.
Okay. Well, do you like broccoli?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then you can rant
good.
with me. This is Broccoli Awareness Day on Robby and Rexrode. I
What is
understand.
happening?
So far, just bad.
Listen.
You've completely wrecked his confidence. It's
No,
gone.
something to behold.
I am going to
It's my
say
mere
this
presence.
full-throated confidence in my broccoli take here, okay? People rip broccoli. People don't want to eat broccoli. I mean, that's a green vegetable epidemic in general. I love them all. But broccoli on its own can be,
Meh.
yeah, nah. I agree. Now, look, broccoli with some cheddar, I
Sure.
think that's pretty good. I still, a little salt and pepper, I'll eat broccoli, but I get it. Broccoli salad, okay, for our Christmas dinner was an absolute hit. And I'm here to give you the best recipe. I've tried many, many recipes. Now, we also have the standing rib roast, Yorkshire pudding, which, how about Yorkshire pudding, Kaharski?
I don't even know what Yorkshire
Okay,
pudding
Yorkshire
is,
pudding.
like most people.
Well, I'm going to tell you about that, too. I got two
I'm not
recipes.
from England.
I got two recipes. Well,
We fought England to gain our freedom from things like Yorkshire pudding.
it's an Irish thing.
Long ago.
But here it is. You put the stick of butter in the pan, and you carefully pour. All it is butter, flour, salt, eggs. Okay? That's it.
Okay.
And you pour it in, and you put it in the oven. And you cannot even make a move around the oven for 35 minutes as it cooks. And you've just got, just amazing stuff. So we had 2 trays of that. But my broccoli salad, folks, here's the recipe, okay? If you hate broccoli, I want you to try this, serve this, and you will love it, and anyone at your table will love it. 4 broccoli heads, a pound of bacon, you cook it, you cool it, you break it apart. About a half a red onion, chop it up. A cup of sunflower seeds, a cup of dried cranberries, a cup of shredded cheddar cheese.
Did we tell people to get out their pens?
Get your pens out. 3 cups of mayonnaise, and I say Duke's. The Duke's Mayo Bowl coming up, or did it already happen?
Consult
What the
Levis.
hell is
Did
happening?
the Mayo Bowl happen already?
Not yet.
6 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, 4 tablespoons of lemon juice, 2/3 a cup of sugar, teaspoon of salt, whisk it together, pure heaven. And it was gone yesterday. Usually a lot of times those Christmas leftovers
Sure.
will
Hang around.
It was gone. It was gone yesterday. Huge vat of it.
On the one hand, I wanted you to slow down so people could write it down. On the other hand, you couldn't go fast enough. National Broccoli Day is the 20th of April. This would have been better saved for that.
Really?
Hopefully that's not a Wednesday. because I wouldn't have had to listen to this.
We could just rerun this.
You are a guy when
National
people
Broccoli
misuse,
Days on 420.
Yeah, when you misuse a word, when somebody misuses a word, Joe is very quick to point out the definition.
Yes.
So let's remind you what a rant is. A rant is an expression of disappointment or misery or outrage.
I have that
This
for
is
people
not
who don't like
outrage.
broccoli.
This is you're twisting it. This was a salute to a broccoli salad. How does that fit in a rant segment? Is this sponsored? The sponsor of the rant is on the phone right now with Nick. Cancel it. He's in protest.
I have a real problem
Nick,
with
what is the
people.
problem with this rant segment? It's gone off the rails. It's now a salute to broccoli. Cancel immediately.
Let's
I
think
have a
about
problem with people who don't like broccoli.
the de-escalation of things that have happened here. Rexrode has gotten to the point where
nervous.
he just can't do it in front of Karski. There's some
Performance
performance
anxiety.
anxiety that's taking place here.
Easy
That
now. Wording.
we can't
What you
get
should
things
have
figured out.
I'll do a quick
And now
Rex
it's
rant.
turned into the Rachel Ray program, and we're going through recipes over here.
I'll do a quick Rex rant. He got what he thought was a flat tire on his way to the game the other day. He calls his wife to come manage the flat tire. Apparently didn't look at the tire. He just presumed the car was telling him correctly that the tire was flat. And it turns out the tire was fine. The gauge that tells you the tire is low on air was broken.
The sensor.
Now, I'm not
I already
a car
told
guy
this story
at all.
today. I already had
I'm
this
repeating
this is a
it.
pre-rant.
But if you go and look at the tire and see that it's full of air, you just proceed. And you don't have to, your wife in pajamas doesn't have to be on the side of the highway at dangerous hour.
Okay. So the sensor tells you all the tires are 35, but the left back is down to 27. And you're just going to be like, let me look at that tire. No, we're good. Let's just keep plowing forward.
I'd examine the tire.
BS.
I'd examine the tire.
You are full of crap. You would not do that.
Oh, it's got to get down to
I
about
would do
15 before I freak out.
anything to avoid calling my
So you would drive.
auto
So you would
assistance.
drive. Continue driving to go to Nissan Stadium. Park at Nissan Stadium and say, hopefully it doesn't lose all the air. Sounds good.
I would call my roadside assistance and take an Uber. Or just park my car in the shoulder, worry about it later, take an Uber. I would not ever call my wife.
Have either one of you ever
I'm
changed
so
the tire
far in the
before?
doghouse
Yes.
already.
I have, but it's been a long time. I've actually changed multiple tires.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
But if you have AAA and you pay for it,
Sure.
Then
No,
also
look.
I have to get out of there. Then
It's annoying, so I'm all for
Yeah,
getting somebody else to do it.
AAA to avoid all the problems.
Sure.
And he still involved his wife.
But you got there safe and sound. Way to go, Rexrode.
Zach in Nashville
And then
says,
didn't write a column. Got to the game to not work.
This is taking
"Oh,
a
I was
turn.
working." Zach in Nashville says, "Can't fool me. Joe's clearly in the pocket of big broccoli with this
That's-
Rexrode."
yes.
That's right, big broccoli, baby.
Well done, Joe.
Broccoli's fine if you just cook it and put a little butter on it.
Sean says, "Here's a rant. Rexrode talking recipes has all-time bad radio. Is it worse though than the last two where I impersonated Jared and then Paul?"
Well, when you set that kind of bar, yeah.
It's just going down.
I think we have a new segment just for when I'm not here that you give a recipe.
All right, Zach. Zach says a tire at 27 PSI is fine to drive by. I understand that, Zach. But again, if the thing starts beeping at you that the 35 is at 27, does that not mean that it might be at 20 in a minute and then it might be at 15 in a minute? I mean, I understand.
Where were you? What highway were you on? Were you on 65?
I was on 24.
See, 24 is
The
the worst
smart
of the
thing
major
to do
arteries.
is to get off the highway. You guys are all Monday morning.
You can't live off
quarterbacks.
24. That's the first problem.
Tune in to more of the Rachel Ray Show coming up today at 3 o'clock.
The Ray rant.
We've determined this is bacon. It goes on. Bacon
Next
on anything
week-
is good.
Next week, pledge that there'll be some sort of negative.
No, you know
element
what?
to
From
you
now on,
say,
every Wednesday, I'm going to make sure it's as non-ranty as possible so you can cry about
so
it.
that I can rant. You're setting me up.
Yes.
Maybe.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Coming up next, we'll get into all things Tennessee Titans with PK. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Stand back. There's a hurricane coming through.
Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com with us for the next hour, talking all things Tennessee Titans here on Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We'll take your thoughts, as always, on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Titans dropped to 5-10 on Sunday, PK, against the Seahawks in just a thriller at Nissan Stadium. Ryan Tannehill back in at quarterback. Derrick Henry with a touchdown pass, also decent day on the ground for him running as well. Overall, what did you make of the Titans, their effort on Sunday, and then finding a way to throw it away at the end of the game?
I mean, the effort was fine considering who they have on the field. I think, in the press box, it's a lot like people in the stands and friends who watch on TV and have a text chain going. We say, how many times have we watched that game? It's very similar. And it was the fourth or fifth time this year that they don't get the defensive stop at the end. And it's not this team hasn't lost predominantly because of defensive failures, but it doesn't make the big stop at the end often enough that would lead to a win. And you certainly had the feeling that, they don't score enough in the first half, which is when they do their scoring most of the time, and the lead isn't big enough, and they don't score as much in the second half as they do in the first half, and that things are ominous heading down to the wire. And then you see, examples of guys that are just not good enough. And people might be sick of hearing about the roster, but you see Trey Avery in that fourth quarter. He gets a penalty that's declined. And then, he gets there were three plays. I'm forgetting the first one. And then there's the pass interference that puts them inside the 5. And then there's the Metcalf there's the Metcalf touchdown. Yep. There's the Metcalf touchdown, then there's the pass interference, and then there's the game-winning touchdown. He's just overmatched in all of those situations. You can't have Avery against Metcalf physically, and you certainly can't have him against Disley. He's given up 60 pounds in that matchup. And I know sometimes you're going to have a corner giving up 60 pounds in that matchup, but that corner can't be Trey Avery. Yeah.
Do you think that it is? It's the same movie over and over again, although it's almost hard when you look out there and it's like, 3 or 4 guys that I'm like, how do you spell that? How do you say that? Who are on the field on defense for them at this point. But do you think that because Vrabel had such a great stretch, really, until late last season, the close games and the close game record, I don't have it in front, but it's gone downhill. Is that does this? We have to count all this, right? Like, is there a long-term concern in that way, or is it just in your mind, it's just not a very good team? So the worst teams lose the close games more often than the good teams do.
I think there's that, and I think maybe 2 years ago when previewing a season, all the analytics literature said, well, they have to regress to the mean in the close games category. They just can't win close games at this rate. And I wrote a piece that said, why can't they just be a team that's good at winning close games? Like, why is that not conceivable? Well, here's why. Over time,
the math won.
Over time, you regress to the mean. And ultimately, in close games, over a large period of time, you will be 500. Over time, in anything in the league, you will generally be average unless you're a big exception to the rule.
Yeah, but you don't often see dominant for a stretch in that way, and then terrible. What I mean? Usually there's a little bit more.
It finds a way of evening out.
Yeah.
So that's their way of evening out. And, I think that's at play too, Joe. I hadn't thought about it this way in terms of the filling in guys. Now, I think Vrabel was terrific at filling in patchwork pieces when he had a strong framework, right? And he could put Trey Avery out there and ask him to do this little bit, right? But when he has to put Trey Avery out there and ask him to be a full outside corner with all the responsibilities of full outside corner. He's asking too much of the role-playing guy. And he's asking too much of role-playing guys all over the field now because there's not a big enough backbone. And that's a different deal. When he's got a good backbone of a team and he can ask less of Andrew Adams or Terrence Mitchell maybe, he got better results.
So we've talked a lot about what we think of Vrabel, what we think of the future of his tenure here, the Patriots situation, all those things. And we've given our thoughts on what we would do. Do you think, as we sit here today, 2 weeks away from the end of the season, is there a chance that Amy Adams Strunk moves on from him? Is there a chance, do you think, that he could actually be in danger? Forget what we would do, because I think the three of us agree that he should be the coach moving forward here. But do you think there's a chance that he could actually be in danger?
I think there's certainly a chance. I mean, we don't know from her, a singular decision maker, what she's going to do. She hasn't come out and said he's staying. So until there's indication from the team that that's what she's doing, it's all educated presumption, really. So I think there's a chance that she does it. I think we're all, connecting dots and using kind of league logic and team logic and all of that. But she, hasn't always done that, and she may be frustrated and sick of it. She loved John Robinson. She loved John Robinson. She told me once, this was when John Robinson got his second contract. And so he got 3 contracts total. And I was fortunate enough it was my first owners meeting. And this is where Robinson got his second contract that lined him up with Vrabel. And so I was at the owners meetings in Arizona. This is when she still talked. And I got maybe 10 minutes with her with my little camera, my little phone on a tripod, and her with the lav mic and everything. And I said, it seems like it would be healthy if John got on the same kind of calendar as Mike in terms of his contract and everything. And she kind of looked at PR sheepishly, and she said, maybe he is. And I said, is he?
Go ahead, impersonator. Go ahead.
No, and she said that he was. And so, she said, later when we were kind of off the record, just while I was gathering my stuff, she said, John's not going anywhere, And so at that point, she loved John.
Sure.
So things change.
Okay, math. What percentage chance that Vrabel gets fired?
Oh, I don't know. 15?
Wow.
12?
That high?
Well, I mean, they may end up being 5 and 12.
Well, sure.
What would you say?
3?
Really?
Yeah.
You got to leave yourself more elbow room.
I don't know. I feel comfortable saying 3 because she chose Vrabel. Not that you had to make a choice then, but when she did what she did not choose, I just screwed up on both guys. Oh, my God.
I agree, but the thing I keep coming back to in this discussion, and I agree the chance is low, but what I keep coming back to in this discussion is what was she told before the season? What were the expectations internally before the season? Because clearly they felt like they could still compete based on their actions. So they were wrong about that. How much does that bother her? Was there a discussion of, hey, Amy, we're going to do the best we can do this year, but it's really about the future with Will Levis and seeing how we could build that way? Or was there an expectation internally this season that, Tannehill's back, paying money for him to be the quarterback. We've got our quarterback we hope of the future, but we'll get to that at some point, and you can win and be in contention now. That's what I keep coming back to.
It's a good question.
I don't know that I think their actions say we could compete for this division. So, I mean, I think that's what they told her with what they did. Now, and the shortcomings. My thing is that some of the issues with the team have been persistent, and that he rebuilt his offensive coaching staff to get this, and that the offensive line troubles. Look, she could reasonably say, and I'm a big proponent, a big backer of Vrabel here, as we all are, but she could say, offensive line was a disaster last year, and this is what you did.
Sure.
Totally fair to say
You know,
that.
and you know, you redid the offensive coaching staff, and this is what you did. I don't understand it. And the Adams family does occasionally, as she did with John, have a odd trigger finger sometimes. So that's why I'm allowing for more than 10%.
Okay, 15-3.
I'll go 12.
12-3.
I'll go 10.
Robbie.
I mean, I think
Okay.
it's pretty low, but I think you have to leave it open for that because of what they did in the offseason and the expectations. Like they obviously felt like they could still win and get back in the playoffs.
Well, as we talked,
they're not going to get close.
No, they're not. But as we talked about, I mean, how many games did they have the same movie over and over again, where just a couple of them are different, and they're right there to win the division.
And here's the other thing. I don't care so much about that. The results are the results. But and I'm not saying it's a fiscal decision at all, but she's still paying Robinson. For a while back there, she was paying Wisenhunt, Malarkey, and Vrabel all at the same time. At a certain point, you look at your budget for these people and say, you know, in the same way you want some continuity, you say, well, you know, let's settle down here, pay the one guy, and let him do his job. You know, and then you look at somebody like Ben Johnson, who reportedly wants $15 million a year.
Yeah.
You know, are you going to go?
His agent has dunked on that statement, but yeah.
His agent also is the guy who probably put it out in the first place.
Yes.
So
He's dunking on himself.
right, but you get it out there and then you quash it. You know, it's all negotiating tactics or whatever. You're not gonna pay a guy over $10 million a year who's done nothing. You know, who a year ago said he wasn't ready, and now all of a sudden, after one more good year, he thinks he's worth $15 million a season.
I mean, the Detroit Lions did just win a division title, so someone's got to get credit.
It's terrific, but you know, there's a lot of finance stuff in play. So you know, I'm not saying you keep them because of the money, but I do think, you know, at a certain point, you'd like to be paying two guys for two jobs.
Got an organizational question for you that we can get to on the text line.
We'll get into that coming up next. More with Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Kieser, Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com with us here on the program. Joe, you had an organizational question for PK regarding the Titans.
Yes, from Ed.
Edward.
Who says, do you think Amy Adams-Strunk hires a football operations person that reports directly to her and is a tier between her, Rand, and Vrabel?
No.
Thank you, Ed, for your question.
They have a football operations person, right? One of the two assistant GMs that Rand hired. He's got in Anthony Robinson, a football person, and then Brinker, an operations person.
Right, but
he is the operations.
But he's talking. I mean, Ed is what he's saying is does she feel the need to go over those guys with someone, whatever you want to call it?
I mean, I think she settled on her football structure a year ago when she hired Rand,
and that'd be a
gave
lot
him the
more
power
money
to hire those two people.
To your point on money spent,
I also think it clogs things up. I mean, she got a GM that reports to her and a coach that reports to her. That's the structure she decided on.
Who has final say, by the way? I forget.
We don't know.
Okay.
It's a collaboration. But to have those two guys report to a guy who reports to her only clogs things up.
It's a lot of TPS reports right there.
It is, no question. PK, on the offseason shopping list, where does edge rusher fall in your mind? Harold Landry's come back and he looks good. Looks like he's getting healthier. We'll see what they do with Danico Autry. Arden Key has not been what they hoped he would be this year. As you look at everything else they've got to accomplish, how do you view the current state of the pass rushing part of this for the Titans and where that's going from here?
It's on the list for sure. I'd re-sign Autry. I think he wants to be here. I think in forecasting a guy hitting the wall, I think it's reasonable to expect he's got something left, hasn't shown signs of age. I think you can get him on a 2-year deal at, reasonable money for what he is. Still, you need something more. And Key hasn't been playing rundowns, and their run defense hasn't been as good as it should be, though obviously we've seen the defensive line guys whittle away between injuries and Tartt's disappearance, literal disappearance. And so I think it's on the list, but it can't be on the list to me ahead of offensive line, cornerback, receiver. Then it might sneak in there. They need somebody at every position. Name a position on the roster. They need some. They need a quarterback because they don't have a backup quarterback next year. They need something everywhere. So it's just a matter of where you plug it in terms of priority. And then people make the mistake of making the priorities have to go in chronological order, which they absolutely don't have to. And the best things you can get in free agency are not going to be the most important things in terms of left tackle's the most important thing. Left tackle's not going to be solved in free agency on the first day of free agency by any means. Left tackle's going to be solved in the draft. You might be able to make a dent in wide receiver or cornerback depth or edge rusher. I mean, there's some edge rushers out there. Allen from Jacksonville, the guy from Baltimore who gets a half a sack a game. There's some edge rushers. Is
Clowney a free agent again? He's awesome now. Clowney's awesome.
Yeah, we just didn't understand.
Jadeveon, making that. Get back in here, Jadeveon.
Jadeveon, did you hurt my guy? He's making impact now. Joe, the same impact he made here, we just didn't see it. You have to understand the magical abilities of Jadeveon, and it was just above our understanding.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, it's kind of like Ackerman. We just didn't understand Ackerman's impact until they fired him.
Little inside baseball here in the press box. For a while now, whenever they make a special teams mistake, one of us, usually either you or me, would be like, Ackerman! And then the other day, they give up a return, and Carsey's like, Ackerman! It's like, can't
break.
Can't
Old habits
can't
die hard.
anymore.
That's right.
Listen, what do we have to rely on up there while we're watching bad football except old traditions?
That's right. Yeah. Well, speaking of coordinators and defense and the needs, what about Shane Bowen this year? I mean, you got people saying that Jim Schwartz is the only reason the Browns are good or whatever, but Jim Schwartz is a great coordinator with a loaded team. What about the job that Shane Bowen has done? And honestly, I mean, how much do you buy? As much as, God, I can't believe I'm bringing it up, Robbie. Why am I doing it? I thought we weren't going to talk about this.
This is what
let's
you do.
Let's not do that.
No names.
Forget that. Just Shane Bowen, though. Shane Bowen and your evaluation.
That's not been good enough. But again, look, this whole season I'm leaning personnel above everything. And I know there's been a bit of a sack resurgence now, but they go games where they get 6 and games where they touch the quarterback twice.
Right.
And in crunch time, when this team was deciding if it was going to be in the playoff hunt or not, they had several games in a row where they weren't touching the quarterback. And Mike Vrabel was being very blunt about it on Mondays when we were reviewing.
Talking about how much guys are getting paid.
How much guys are getting paid. Yeah.
And you need your guys who get paid to do things. And that front four, look, I mean, I think that this team is very much, a traditional football team. You talk about what goes on in the trenches. The offensive line is the root cause of everything that's bad with this football team. And then the second thing is that it was built for the defensive line to kind of dictate defensively what goes on and to even take the ball away and give the offense some possessions, short field possessions. And the defensive front has not lived up to the billing at all. I'm one of the few people that ever says anything negative about Jeff Simmons. My Twitter will load up now. Jeff Simmons did not live up to expectations this year. Next time I see him in the locker room, he'll give me a side eye and probably bitch me out because I dare say something negative about Jeff Simmons, who, by the way, people were voting for the Good Guy Award. I don't get that.
I'll debate you on that, but go ahead. Go on.
Yeah, he's available. Being available doesn't make you the good guy if you're being defensive and huffy all the time because you can't take any criticism.
He's just yelling at you, though. So I think he's still
well.
a candidate.
Let me tell you a secret. Sean Murphy Bunting was a candidate for the award, and if I saw him being huffy with somebody else, I'd say, well, maybe he's not as good a guy as everybody thinks. I'm not going to vote for him.
You have to be a Stepford player.
We have no media unity in that regard. Darren Bates should win the Good Guy Award. There he is about to kill Paul Kuharsky. Oh, never mind that. He's good to me. I'll vote for him.
I like the guy. I like his music, and he hates Paul. Good Guy Award.
Key, a big talker, not that much of a deliverer. Landry, at least, has begun to come out of it. So give him credit. It wasn't his fault that he wasn't very good. Autry, has his flashes. Collectively, it should be better than it's been. It's not been good enough. How much of that's on Shane Bowen? How much of that's on Terrell Williams? Those are all established NFL players. First and foremost, and I don't know why this fan base doesn't work this way, they prefer to be mad, and I haven't heard Terrell Williams' criticism, they prefer to be mad at Shane Bowen for Arden Key not doing what he's supposed to do, for Harold Landry's slow return, for if they realize that Jeff Simmons wasn't productive, for Jeff Simmons' lack of production in certain situations, and for I know there's not criticism of Autry, but they look at that collective lack of production and they want to blame Bowen over those guys.
Well, but coordinators get paid a ton of money to collectively put that puzzle together and get the best performance and put them in position to succeed, right? I mean, why do you pay them so much?
Over and over. Win your one-on-ones. Those guys all know how to win one-on-ones. They've all won one-on-ones in the past. Do we think they've been downgrade coached to fail at winning one-on-ones?
Well,
Shane's taking them out there and having them, hey, here's how you don't win a one-on-one. Here's the handwork and the footsteps to lose one-on-ones.
If you just fall down, it's really effective.
Well, the other part is they took a chance on Arden Key and thought he could be an every down guy. And he's not. He's not a starting level player. And that's been apparent.
Also, he told us that he's a November, December player. Do you feel like he's been substantially different in November, December than he was in September, October?
Well, I will say that I think in October, he actually, you just said, by the way, that Tier Tart literally disappeared, which isn't true. He didn't literally disappear. I think Arden Key may have literally disappeared in December. Or in October. He may have actually become an apparition and just faded into the...
Not much going on.
It's like Thanos, snap the fingers and he's gone. So he's been better. He's at least made a play or two here or there the last few weeks,
not good
right?
enough, but yeah.
Oh, no.
The highlight of his season was an 8-sack practice in the second week of August.
Golly.
Right?
Why can't
That Andre Dillard.
I know.
He's struggling out there with Arden Key.
He's like,
Good thing it's Arden Key.
Yeah.
Won't be seeing anything like that in the
He's
regular
terrific
season.
because we know Dillard's solid.
it's like a coach. It's like a coach is like, that coach is really doing a great job. You shouldn't fire. Arden Key's like, you teams out there, you really need to look at Andre Dillard as your left tackle next year.
Let's go to our 102.5
Keep him in the division.
phone line.
Let's get him in Indy.
Driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Tristan. Tristan, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Yes, I was wondering why they don't start Caleb Murphy. Like, what's the problem with him? He's had lots of sacks in college, and we haven't seen him play at all. I would like to get that offensive tackle from Notre Dame or Penn State once we drive, and then the backup quarterback should be J.J. McCarthy from Michigan.
Thanks for calling, Tristan.
I had this conversation with John Glennon in the press box, and this really is a Titans fascination. The longer a guy doesn't play for the Titans, the better he gets. If you sit a guy on the bench for the Titans,
this is a sports thing.
We hadn't
Don't
seen
confine it to
Caleb
the
Murphy
Titans.
since
This is a sports thing.
Caleb Murphy had a couple sacks in the preseason. Had a billion sacks at what? Division II,
Ferris
Division III?
Ferris State.
NAIA?
He's sacking the crap out of people there.
Ferris State is
Division 2, isn't it?
Division D2. Yeah.
Look, if they thought Caleb Murphy could help him, they would play him. They want sacks. There's something about Caleb Murphy that they think is not ready.
Well, he's a good story that he's in the league.
Right.
Yeah. So,
And he's a project. They have a bunch of guys on the team who they project can be good down the road. But it doesn't mean they're good now. But I hear this over and over, there's a conspiracy to sit Caleb Murphy. It's a magic bullet theory about Caleb Murphy. It just won't play this guy who's going to sack the quarterback 5 times at least if he would put him out.
you don't want 22 sacks because he got them last year.
He did.
How about 11? He'll get at least 14, right?
He played this week. How many snaps did he play?
615-737-1025, our phone number. More with Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com. Coming up next, this is Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Tune in this Saturday for the Trans-Perfect Music City Bowl on 102.5 The Game as Auburn goes up against Maryland at Nissan Stadium. Pre-game coverage begins at noon, presented by Green Trees Company. Kickoff at 1 o'clock. Get tickets today at MusicCityBowl.com. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keiser, Paul Kuharsky with you here on this Wednesday morning, talking all things Titans. You mentioned backup quarterback. It is going to be interesting to see how they approach it. I said last week, if you go into next year with Malik Willis as the plan, as backup quarterback, it's a fireable offense.
It won't be the plan. That they're not even taking a look at him here tells you it won't be the plan.
Yeah. I wonder, Minshew could be available. We go through the list last week, Joe.
Minshew, Brissett.
It's actually like a decent, Dobbs, decent crew of backup quarterbacks.
Look. They got
shines off Dobbs a little bit.
Well, as a QB
as a
too,
UT guy. Well, yeah,
that's what he is.
Well, right.
Okay, he's top of the
half dozen.
Yeah, he's top 5 of backup quarterbacks in the NFL. He's been here, so there's already a little bit of a history. I think they should get into a bid for him. I really do.
Yeah, or Minshew, or Brissett, or who played for the Giants the other day. Constantly am forgetting one of the 4
Tyrod Taylor.
that I want. Tyrod Taylor, yep. I like. There's some options out
there. Those guys are a little older too. I mean, Dobbs is still young, and I think that he could be a long-term QB too.
Well, certainly. I mean, it would undo the slap in the face that the Titans have given their fans by drafting Will Levis.
Yes,
exactly.
Would.
There's a little balance, a little Kentucky, Tennessee balance.
Well, it would create a problem in that every time Levis threw an incomplete pass, there would be calls for Dobbs to play, and I would like to avoid that.
Have you been encouraged by what you've seen from Chig the last few weeks here? Obviously, it's not, earlier in the season he couldn't catch anything. He's dropping the ball left and right, and he has not taken the step that clearly a lot of people thought he could. But he has looked a little better to me anyway the last 2 or 3 weeks. 6 catches, 63 yards on Sunday. What have you made of Chig's last couple of games?
He's made some progress there in the passing game, which is good. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I kind of cut Chig a break this season in that he's blocked a lot, and I'm sure a lot more than he expected, and it's not what he's made for. It's not what he came in the league expecting to do. But their tackle troubles have forced them to use him in that fashion far more than I think they ever would have envisioned. And I think that beats him down to a degree. And sure, you want him to be able to do both, but I just think maybe the focus. I don't know. I expect Chig next year to be a well-rounded player, but he's not a 1. And I think they need a number 1 tight end that put another position on the list. But as a 2, I like him, and I think he's a more well-rounded player for what he's gone through this year. And I'm glad it looks like he'll be exiting on a better note and doing better things. He's up there on the reception list as second or third, I think. I just looked. NWI is the second leading receiver receiving, which is awful for a guy who's going to miss.
It's time for you to tip the cap.
The games that he's going to miss, and that again tells you how desperate they are for receiver.
I've got a couple questions today. Now we got another one here, so for both of you, because you the David Bakhtiari thing. First of all, he's hurt a lot,
can't
but
play.
Right? I mean, that's not really a thing.
No, you can't go near that guy.
No, he's
closer to retirement than to helping you.
Yeah.
First off, if he's going to keep playing, it's going to either be in Green Bay or it's going to be with the Jets with Rodgers. Those are the only 2 places he's going to go.
And second of all,
he can't get on the field.
He's probably maxing out at 8 games in a particular season, right?
He can't get on the field. It's been a 3-year knee injury. He can't get out there.
Yeah. Left tackle. And they are in position, and I know we don't want to go too much into draft stuff right now, but they're in position, if they lose, as they need to lose these last 2 games, to get one of those 2 guys. I think they have a real chance to get one of those 2 guys.
Well, they're at 7, so it needs to unfold in a proper way. You need the quarterbacks to go high, maybe a third quarterback in there. People get receiver itchy. It needs to unfold in a proper way. The two left tackles could be top 6 players.
Could be, but some of those teams ahead of them also aren't in the market for that. Now, teams could trade up to those spots.
Sure.
So, the higher you're, the better.
Yeah.
Is it okay for a Titans fan right now to want to watch Will Levis and want to root on the players and hope Derrick Henry has production and hope they keep fighting and then not be sad if there's a late field goal and then they get a higher pick?
You don't have to be sad if they lose, but I don't think – I just don't get the rooting for them to lose.
You've never at any point – I'm trying to think of your teams. Like you've never – I mean, at any point rooted – like you had a crappy team and you wanted to get a higher pick and so at the end of the year you're rooting for them to lose?
No.
I think it's different if Levis is in there. Like if Levis is in there, you want to see him do well
and win.
Like
if it's Levis Stroud,
exactly.
That's going to be a scoreboard that people keep, right?
I just think it's franchise wide. Like I'm talking about people in the building that don't even touch football. Maybe I'm completely naive on this, but the whole spirit, like. Were you at the combine?
Well, they can't want to lose.
Were you in the? I'm not talking about wanting to lose. I'm talking about the effects of the losses.
Yep.
Were you at the combine when Robinson cried?
Yep.
When the Cincinnati, the way that loss. Now that's an extreme loss, right?
Yeah.
After a good season, but the way that loss affected that organization for so long was so unhealthy. And such a problem for them. And I just think
Ryan Tannehill talked about it personally,
right,
too.
If you carry more losing into the offseason, it's just like these people think that Alt and the Penn State kid whose name I need to learn. Fashanu, that they are Joe Thomas guaranteed. What the Titans need to do is wherever they draft, they need to draft a good player. This is the problem the Titans have. They don't have. I mean, sure, if they wind up in position for the best guy at the best position, that sounds great. They did it with Corey Davis, and they picked the wrong guy. Pick the right guy at the spot that you're at.
Of course,
that should be your first worry.
Of course,
they don't do that. They haven't done it.
Well, first of all, the GM has had one draft.
Okay, but organizationally, it's been a long time problem. So you got to fix that problem. Wherever spot you're drafting at, in the first round, in the second round, in the fourth round, pick the right guy, a guy who helps your football team. No. I'm worried about that.
Yeah, best available should carry the day. I agree. I mean, needs still has to be considered, I think. But to your point about losing and winning, okay, so let's say they win one or both of these games. Does that have a big positive effect in their offseason? Everybody's got a little more pep in their step through the offseason?
I think the owner's a lot more happy with beating Houston than she is about drafting.
Well, her and this game.
Well, guess what? When the owner's happy, people tend to be happy. The building tends to be a happier place.
There's that, too. 615-737-1025. More with Paul Kuharsky coming up next. Bowl season is back, and 102.5, 106.3 The Game, and 94.9 The Fan is your home for college football bowl games and the college football playoff presented by Twin Peaks and Parma Tractor and Equipment. Catch the Military Bowl coming up today at 2 o'clock. Duke's Mayo Bowl at 4 p.m. on 94.9 The Fan as North Carolina takes on West Virginia. For a list of games carried on 102.5, 106.3 The Game, and 94.9 The Fan, hit up our website at thegamenashville.com/bowl games. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in. Final segment of the day. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Live from our 102.5 The Game studio. Brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Paul Kuharski with us here on the program. PK, have you seen enough from Spears, Tajay Spears, to think that he can be an every down back if that's the direction the Titans choose to go with him next season?
I don't think an every down back, by the definition of what an every down back has meant with Derrick Henry, he's not going to take that kind of load. 60 to 65%, 70% maybe. Yeah, but in that I'm talking some of that's going to be receptions.
Yeah,
right. Touches, not carries. I'm not quite as high on him as everybody seems to be, because I think he comes and goes, and I think the offensive line's clearly a problem, but there is an ability for guys to create something. He does make the first guy miss a lot, and so that's encouraging, and I think he's definitely a big building block for this team going forward. And I think he's a big part of the reason that I don't expect Derrick Henry to be back. I did a chat yesterday afternoon. I mean, the amount of sentimentality connected to wanting Derrick Henry back. I mean, people are willing to give Derrick Henry 2 years and $19 million, which is outrageous.
Well, obviously, that's not happening. But I think that Spears is going to be part of a NFL backfield next year here in Nashville, and it'll be more of a split, more split duties. But I don't think it's just sentimentality that would want people to have Derrick Henry. I just watched Derrick Henry look really effective as a running back. Why can't Derrick Henry, why doesn't he fit as the other back? When you just said yourself during the break, I mean, Spears has outsnapped him this year. It's already going that way, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a whole bunch of questions that complicate the Derrick Henry stuff. Is Derrick Henry up for being much more second fiddle here? And do you want your primary back to be on the bench on first down? Because for Derrick Henry to play Derrick Henry's role, he's first down back, right? So I don't know. It's complicated in that sense. Is your first down back your goal line back? Is your second string back your goal line back?
But lots of teams they alternate series, right? That's what we see around the league.
I hate alternating series. I mean, that's just me. I want situational play, not series by series play. A third down back makes sense if he's got third down.
So you think it should be Spears and more of a third down back with him?
No, I think it should be Spears and somebody who's a little bit Henry-like but can catch the ball more like Spears, so that he's more similar to Spears, so that you could do the same things with either back on the field and thus become less predictable.
You just contradicted yourself. You just said you don't like splitting series, but that's exactly what you would have there. That wouldn't be a situational skill set. That would be, and either guy could go at any point. That's what I'm talking about.
I did contradict myself. I want to be able to do everything with either back. They talk about being less predictable. I want them to be less predictable that way. Right now, with what's coming with one back on the field or the other. I also think Derrick Henry is diminishing, and you have to foresee further diminishment. It's your job to foresee that coming. And the Titans can't be sentimental about it.
What do you think?
I'd bring him back. Now, the money that people are throwing out there that he could get is just astounding. Like, he's not approaching that. And if you're him, my thought process, if I'm him, is if I'm going to be second fiddle here, I'll go be second fiddle somewhere else where I've got a chance to win. That would be my thought process if I were him. So I think we honestly spend too much time wondering whether or not the Titans want him back, where I think probably the more apt discussion is, does he want to come back, given the role that's going to be offered?
I think he's better served career-wise, instead of ring chasing, being here if he can be assured of a certain role, building the Hall of Fame resume, getting the touchdowns that he can get and the yards he can get.
So you'd rather have a gold jacket than a Super Bowl ring?
if I'm him, I mean, there's no assurance you're getting a Super Bowl ring where you're going. You're just as likely to get it here as you are somewhere else, in a lot of ways. I mean, unless you're going to, Philadelphia, which seems to be just fine. Maybe
Baltimore.
Buffalo, but I don't think it. See, I don't think even with diminished carries here, he's going to wind up getting as much work in Baltimore. He's going to wind up getting as much work if they have him back here as the second back, he's getting more work here than he's getting in Baltimore or in Buffalo.
I think Buffalo. I agree. Baltimore. I don't know. They've had such bad luck with running backs.
Yeah.
If you had him in that offense, again, as long as he doesn't diminish further, and I agree with you on getting out in front of him.
Lamar's going to run.
Well, they'll be coming off Super Bowl.
That's true. Chase another ring.
Help
him get another one.
I don't know. There's a lot to be determined, and I think he's not. His case isn't going to be settled, I bet you, till July.
That's going to do it for us today here on Robby and Rexrode. PK, thanks for being in.
Don't block the box. Be sure to lock your locks. Thank you all.
We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. Jason Big Joe coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
See ya.
Eat broccoli.